Okay, so I know I'm coming on right now with this scarf and it's low-key giving like whatever. But anyway, I was journaling and I just wanted to talk about my personal experiences of like growing up in the ghetto, being in impoverished communities, and just something that I've just realized within our communities as Black people, and specifically in regards to Black men. And this is going to be like a very quick video, like it's more so like an observance. I'm up this morning, I've had my coffee, I've sat in nature, very grounded, very mindful, very demure. And so just wanting to really talk about something, because I'm not coming from a place of like disdain or trying to make anybody feel shameful. I'm saying this because if you're a young man and you happen to stumble across this video, or if you're a young woman and you know a young man who happens to stumble across this video, you can maybe take something from this so that you can move on with your life, right? Like, that's more so the space I'm coming from. So I'm gonna go ahead and say what I gotta say because it needs to be said. So I just think about the coddling of Black men and how it's like really bad, right? And like, obviously what I'm saying is nothing taboo. We already know that this is something that exists, but you guys, like, it's really bad. And I read the Willie Lynch letter. I highly recommend everybody read that book. It's a very short read, but it's so informative. And it really peers into Black psychology. And honestly, that's something I've also been looking into too, just having lived in a very impoverished environment and been around a lot of like poverty and a lot of poor Black people, obviously. But just really understanding like the psychology behind poverty, because I used to be someone who was a social activist, and I still am to an extent, and for my own personal reasons. But I used to be someone who was definitely like social activist, social advocate. And being in these communities, immersing myself in these communities, made me realize that there is something psychologically going on here. And a lot of times, it's mostly Black women, most of the times, who are advocating on behalf of our communities and who are kind of like the social justice warriors within our communities. But when you live in it and you're immersed in it, you start to notice certain things. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to come on here and talk about the coddling of Black men and how many people sabotage Black men, right? And when I say sabotage, let me just dial it back. Not many people. If you're a single mother and you're raising a son, you have to be strong. So let me go ahead and start the video off by saying that. I'll give you a word of encouragement. You have to be strong in this life, okay? Like, you cannot be afraid of something happening to your son. Like, obviously it's easier said than done, because it's like, when you have a baby, it's an extension of you, and you're like, girl, like, I just don't want that to happen to my baby. But it's to the point where there comes a point in time where you have to realize that you cannot control anything. And for me, I used to be someone who really struggled with like anxiety, especially in terms of death and like my family and stuff like that. And that really stemmed from just having grown up. I grew up like my parents were they were born and young around the crack epidemic. So after that came like mass gun violence and everything like that. Hip hop, was different. It was just crazy time, right? So that was the era where I was a young girl, but I just remember there were so many killings in my family. I remember my mom picking me up from school, 4th grade, 5th grade, right? And it seemed like it was happening every single year. And she's like, such and such was shot last night, such and such was shot, And so I just grew up with like a lot of anxiety around death, and it made me cling and hold on to people to such an extent to where it just wasn't healthy. It wasn't a healthy way to live my life. I had to go through a lot of healing and process that. And coming out on the other side, it's easier said than done. Like I said, do your healing work, but you're going to find that it's something that is out of your control, right? Unfortunately, we don't know when our last breath is going to be. We don't know, we can't control nobody else's actions. We don't really know. Like, it's nothing we can really do to prevent death. It's just inevitable. Is it sad? Is it unfortunate? Yeah. I mean, it's grief, it's mourning. But to live your life in such a way to where you are holding a person back because you're afraid of losing them, this is unhealthy, and you have to go and get help. Like, you have to sit and work through these anxieties because you are literally ruining this person's life. And I have to say it in that way because we have to start to understand the detriment of this, right? Mothers who are currently justifying their sons staying at home past the age of 26, right? Black boys living with their parents past the age of 23, right? You do understand that in comparison to other men, and other people, right? And the thing about it is, we use comparisons not in terms to put a person down or to steal anybody's joy or to neglect or negate the very real and very viable, right, factors that go into contributing whether or not a person is progressing in life, right? But the reason why we use comparisons, and sometimes comparisons can be helpful, is so you can look at your life and see where you're falling in line in terms of what your peers are doing, right? So we use comparisons so that we can understand where we should be in life in terms of just in terms of our personal development, right? So when you think about, and maybe comparison isn't the best word, we can say generalizations, right? But when you look at a 3-year-old, right, what should a 3-year-old be doing? They should be talking, they should be walking, they should be, you see what I'm saying? And obviously, let's not get into the very, like I said, those factors that play a role in within a person's exceptionalism. So I'm not insensitive, don't twist my words. But so when you take those into consideration, you have to understand that when we look at our young Black boys, what are they doing at this age, right? Something that I personally think needs a call to action within the Black community. And when I say Black community, I'm a little bit more apprehensive about talking about communal issues because from my personal experiences of working in underserved communities, there's just a lot really going on there that I don't even think I have time or a blueprint to really sit and like formulate a thought well enough to articulate all of those things within this video, right? This is kind of just like a brain dump. I'm just coming on to share what I experienced, right? But I no longer talk communally because I understand that it takes individuals to make a healthy community. And we can talk communally, we can talk about community all day long, but there are a lot of people who are just by the wayside. Okay, we can't save everybody. So anyway, I just want you guys to know that yes, like there's a lot of coddling going on here. Something that concerns me within the Black community is obviously the lack of role models, but it's this lack of guidance, right? I will never really understand why it is socially acceptable. It is something that is communally like a standard to debunk college, to debunk education, and all of these different things, right? I will never understand this because Black kids are graduating and there's nothing that they're doing. There's no schools, there's no education, nothing. They just they just become victims to their environment. And so it's like, I'll never really understand that. I think a big part of it is because of lack of education, right? When you have people who aren't educated, who don't know about the different careers and the opportunities that a university can provide, then obviously they're going to tell you not to go and pursue that. But it's like, what are these kids doing? What are these young adults doing once they graduate high school, right? They're just becoming victims to their environment. Something that really brings about a great sense of grievance to me, communally, is this really unhealthy and immature and almost like arrested development. It's this superiority, but like inferiority complex that is this obsession with like exceptionalism, right? Black youth are not encouraged to work hard. And we're talking about men, but we're talking about, and I guess we'll talk about men and Black boys, but there's this discouragement from like working hard and doing the things, right? And so when someone is doing and behaving poorly, but they're still getting rewarded, right? In any way, right? This could be whether they're in a relationship, right? That maybe they don't really deserve that partner, right? And I'm being honest, right? Because the thing is about like manhood and stuff like that, there's markers to it. So if you are, someone who doesn't have a job, you have no future, you really don't deserve to be in a relationship and to like bring someone else in that, because it's directionless, right? And as a man, you do have certain responsibilities in terms of like partnering and your role in that. But when you're rewarded for not following that role, abstaining that role, maintaining that role, upkeeping that role, then there's really no room for improvement. But let me dial it back because I'm all over the place in this video. But something that I've just kind of seen, and it's not just Black mothers per se, it's just communally, like it's all across the board. But when you let your sons live in your house well past the age of 20 and plus, I want you to know that there are other young men out here in the world who are graduating college, who are building skill sets for the workforce, who are, just a lot further along, a lot more articulate, a lot more in tune with themselves, in tune with the world. And we kind of see this too, like, a lot of the young Black boys who are looking into like emotional intelligence are actually just becoming more and more effeminized, because what they do when it comes to this emotional intelligence role modeling and learning is they look for that to be taught to them by Black women, right? So it kind of just becomes this competitive thing where it's like, well, my feelings matter more than yours, right? And it's no longer this masculine thing of like, this is actually healthy and this is how you do this, right? And we can kind of see this obviously showing up in the podcasts that are being created about women, the podcasts that are being created about, very toxic masculinity and these very toxic versions of masculinity. But I don't know, you guys. I know this video is all over the place, but it's not even a cry for help. It's just more so like, I just want y'all to see it as I'm seeing it. And I think we're all seeing it in real time. I really feel like this is a column that I'm going to have to write, because the thing about video content and like writing is that writing, you can just express things in a different way. You can express things more so like truthfully. With speaking, you have to kind of tailor the message and be mindful of what you say. But yeah, y'all, I hope this video was like somewhat helpful or insightful or something like that. But yeah, I just want you to know that like, you do men and young boys a huge disservice when you make excuses as to why they cannot do something. Like, all you do is subconsciously cripple them. That's all you do, right? One thing I noticed about this generation is like, oh, rent is high. Babe, I'm never going to front and act like rent is not high, but I'm going to tell you right now, rent is high when you think you deserve something you didn't work for. You, with where you're at currently in your life, with this being your first apartment, just prime example, this being your first apartment, with you making the amount of money you're making, with you being where you are in your career based on the choices you made. So whether or not you decided to go to college, that is going to have a huge impact on your career. And this is what and your earnings, right? And this is why I'm talking about like this whole thing, which is concerning me, which is this obsession with exceptionalism, because we're at this point now, especially within the community. When I look at Black youth, I don't know what has been told, but it's something that I feel like you can easily follow within just the previous generations and so forth. There's always this obsession with exceptionalism, to the point where young Black kids and a lot of young Black people really don't feel like they have to put in the work for anything. There's this attitude and this kind of like disposition that you deserve a business loan because you have a business idea, right? There's this attitude that you deserve a successful business because maybe you have work ethic, but you don't understand that there's so much more that goes into that. Like, there's business acumen, right? And so when you go out in here in the world and you're competing with entrepreneurship, not saying there are not discriminatory practices in place, but it's like when you go out in the world and you're trying to compete and you're trying to, build a business, and you have absolutely no business acumen, and you're competing with people who have 4-year business degrees, what are you doing, right? And so it's unfortunate, because I'm saying that because something that is so evident to me is that we encourage like failure to the extent of like, oh yeah, just go out and do it and just start. And like, when we look at entertainment, we can see this very clearly, right? You have a lot of entertainers who are obviously, we know, being used for the media or the industry's agenda to push certain stereotypes about Black people. We know that they're being used for their influence. And why is that, right? We can talk about spirituality, but we can also look at it in a practical sense and see, yeah, this is what happens when you don't know anything, right? When you think you're just exceptional and you think you can just go into these rooms and sign papers and do all this stuff. And it's like, you have no idea what you're reading. You didn't take a business law class or anything, right? And so I think that what's really unfortunate about the Black experience is that so often we feel as though we are devoid of American principle, right? Like we feel like we're not American. So we think that we don't have to really go through certain processes in terms of like achieving a certain type of thing, right? And it's unfortunate as well because you always have people who do come out and share their negative experiences about how they may have achieved a certain thing or how they may have gone through, you know, a certain process and they did do things the right way and it didn't work out for them. But what they don't share with you is all the nuances, all the real choices that they made and so forth, you know? So we always kind of have this disposition of being a victim. And sometimes that can be really unfortunate. You know, I've had situations in my life where I was a victim, right? I was a victim to racism. I've been on jobs where I've been discriminated against, you know, especially working in the medical field. It was crazy. But at the end of the day, pushing forward, choosing to leave the job, that's all I could do, right? Going to HR, hey, sometimes they side with you, sometimes they don't. Like, my point is, this coddling and this continual upholding of exceptionalism is what is keeping so many of us behind, period. So back to what I was saying about the first apartment thing. Why do you deserve to live somewhere nice? You can't afford it. You can't afford it, right? When I think about my first apartment, sweetie, it didn't give that. I didn't have a lot of money saved. I was literally on the 5th floor downtown in my city. I was probably on the 5th or 6th floor. Okay. I had to carry groceries, laundry, anything all the way up 6 flights of stairs. I was in a 2 little room studio. It was fairly ugly, but I was so grateful because it was my apartment. My shower was in my kitchen. It was all together. Okay. I had 1 window. But I was so grateful because it was mine and I worked for it. So I say all this to say, if you really want something out of life, you have to get on the road. There is no, you guys are saying, oh, you know, my son is staying with me. And I'm saying this specifically because I feel like young women move out, argue with whatever, you know, I'm just saying what I see. But I'm saying all this to say, like, people are like, well, you know, my son is staying with me and, you know, they're making money and black kids always put out at 18 because black kids need to get a head start because there are no handouts, sweetie. There is no trust fund. You need to hit the road. Okay. You need to be taking off at 16, 17. Any opportunities, you need to be getting it. Why? Because you don't have that. You don't have no cushion. You don't have no trust fund. There is no life insurance policies for you, babe. We just now communally, I think we're just now learning about 529 plans. And like I said, we can have conversations about being systemically deprived of certain information at a later date. But today, right here in this video, we're gonna talk about the truth. Okay, we're gonna talk about what's really going on, and we're gonna spit it in layman terms. Okay, so your son is not saving money, babe. He's not saving money. You need to put him out. He's not going to respect you and pay you money to live there. He's not going to do that. This is not that. Okay. We are not living in the 90s prior to post Tupac era. Okay. We're in the I say post Tupac era, but you know, Tupac era, right? We are post Tupac era. Okay. So you know what that means? That means that we have a race of babies that hate the ladies who make the babies. Okay. That was prophetic, right? So you guys have to really stop this coddling because it's only going to get worse. It's no way that you understand that him being 23, 24, 25, 26, he's not even on the road, bro. He's not on the road. Like, what? He has to go out here and figure it out. If he wants to succumb to the very negative pressures, then that's on him. You know, I understand everybody had a different life and different head start, but I'm telling you right now, the coddling and the over empathizing is not helping. It's just not helping. You know, you have to let them know that you believe in them and you trust that they're going to be okay. And like I said, you don't deserve a nice apartment. It's your first apartment. When I got my first car, it was a hoopty. It was a hoopty hoop. Who's signing for a car note? You don't have any money, babe. This is a McDonald's salary. But that's the thing today. So it's like the priorities are out of place. And there's coddling. And it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. So take into consideration everything I said in this video. You need to heal if you have attachment issues to the point where you can't even let your kids go out in the world and become productive citizens and build a life for themselves, right? Heal. If you are a young man watching this, you need to move out of your mothers. You need to let go. You need to move on. If you're able-bodied and you're capable, it's time to move on. You are not a victim. There are a lot of opportunities out there in the world. You need to figure out what you want to do and stick with it. For anybody else out there who's listening to this, man or woman, you are going to suck. You're going to be really bad at what you do, but you get better with time. Okay. And that's the price that you pay for success, sweetie. Just because you have your business idea doesn't mean you're getting a loan, sweetie. There's a lot that goes into legalities. There's a lot that goes into financial planning. There's a lot that goes into business acumen in terms of having an ample, incredible business plan where somebody wants to give you money. I'm not saying that we are not up against systemic oppression. I'm just saying we're putting the cart before the horse. Okay? And this is to our detriment. So if you really care about the people you love, you will let them go. Seriously. Something I will never really understand about Black women, and I'll end with this, is I'll never understand Black women who are so nasty, so aggressive, so volatile when it comes to Black women. But when it comes to Black men, it's this coddling. And it's like, mentally, if you are that Black woman, you need to get help, right? I've had so many older Black women coming at me for really petty things, right? Like really petty things. You know, if it's something, let's just say, for example, I'm working let's say I'm in healthcare, right? And I'm working with a colleague of mine on a chart for a patient or whatever the case may be. This colleague, when she feels like I'm doing something or whatever the case may be, right? She may feel like I'm not, charting something correctly intentionally. So she comes at me, she's charging full force. There's aggression, there's all of this, right? There's attitude, she doesn't feel respected, all of that. But when it comes to a man, a grown man, y'all have different attitudes. You guys gotta heal. You gotta heal. It's not cute. It's not normal. It's weird. You need to go get help. And I see this in how women parent their daughters, right? I will never understand this whole attitudey, nasty, slap her up, slap her around. She needs to be checked. She needs to be beat down type of attitude. And it's not just mothers. It's other women within the family. I will never understand this attitude. But when it comes to a young boy, you guys, the excuses, the coddling is ridiculous. So I just want you to know that this is not a video bashing single mothers. This is not a video bashing women who got to do what they got to do, who are out here trying to figure out this parenting thing. This is not a video bashing parents in general who literally don't have a blueprint, regardless of their circumstances, who are literally just doing their best trying to raise their kids. This isn't that. But what this is an acknowledgement of how when you have children and you don't give them a blueprint to life, you don't teach them anything, you don't, provide any wisdom, you don't have any resources, and the resources aren't just always material. You don't need a lot of money, but do you know what's going on, what they can do, what they can get into so they can be productive citizens in society? Okay, so they don't have to resort to environmental pressures to make ends meet or to feel like somebody. So that's the end of the video. I listen. It's not a good look. It's not a good look. And I'm telling you right now. Listen. Men are not weak. They are not dumb. They are not confused. They are not, any of those things. Fully capable of cognitive reasoning, fully capable of, experiencing human emotion. So, if you want to be someone who wants to continue to make excuses for young men, They're going to become boys, and this is what it's going to be. And I really don't understand why y'all don't. I just don't get it. I just don't get it. So this is the end of the video. I'm gonna write a column because I just feel like there's so much I really want to say, but I couldn't say because I didn't even plan on making a video. But yeah, I don't know. Call it a cry for help.